Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, our December conversation with Dr. Roger McEowen from the Washburn School of Law. Lots of things to talk about if you receive certain forms of payments, and also some things to consider as we look at year-end tax planning. We'll also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission, Kansas Department of Agriculture, and Kansas Grain Sorghum, along with the weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
Well, in agriculture information, it is annual meeting season around the state of Kansas, and a couple of the biggies have held their elections. Kansas Livestock Association met in Wichita, and Sean Tiffany, who is a cattle feeder from Harrington, is the new president of the KLA. Phil Weltmer from Smith County is the president-elect of the Kansas Livestock Association. And also last week, Kansas Farm Bureau got together in Manhattan. Rich Feltz from Montgomery County retired after 8 years as president and elected Wilson County farmer Joe Newland. He's also a member of the Kansas legislature, now is the new president of the Kansas Farm Bureau. Congratulations to all. And more groups will be meeting. In fact, in the coming days, the 10th anniversary of the Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan. In response to relatively stronger net farm incomes, U.S. farm sector capital expenditures have increased dramatically in the last 3 years. That according to research done at the University of Illinois. In 2019, farm sector capital expenditures approximately $30.1 billion. The forecast value for 2022 is $44.2 billion. Capital expenditures, well, those include tractors, trucks, autos, machinery, buildings, land improvement, as well as some miscellaneous expenditures. Capital consumption represents the declining balance of capital stock or economic depreciation. The ratio of capital expenditures to capital consumption did increase, though, 1.06 in 2019 to now a number of 1.70 in 2022. That data does imply that farmers have used a portion of their strong net farm income in the last few years to replenish their capital stock. The changes in expenditures during the last 4 years have differed among different expenditure categories. Now, specifically, increases were larger for tractors as well as machinery than for those autos, trucks, buildings, and other land improvements. And the food price index in November virtually was unchanged. The FAO food price index averaged 135.7 points in November of 22, virtually unchanged from that number in October. The index offered month-to-month decreases, though, in the price indices for things like cereal, dairy, and meat, and nearly offset the increases in vegetable oils and sugar. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com.
Joining us now is Dr. Roger McEowen, Ag and Tax Law Specialist at Washburn School of Law. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Ken. Good to be with you.
Well, Merry Christmas and all that. This is already our December. Can you believe that? But with December brings some year-end things, and we'll talk about that some maybe some year-end planning tips. But the other thing is we kind of piece all these things together. And I know I've already been to my accountant a couple times to look at some different things, but you know, a lot of folks get easement payments for different type of situations. And so
Yeah.
are there some tax consequences the folks need to be aware of?
Well, there are. And I think really what you have to do as a landowner to start out this is you have to understand the character of the transaction. So we have to characterize the transaction, whether it involves a sale of the property or whether it's a lease of the property. Is it a permanent easement that the company is acquiring from you? Is it a temporary easement? What's the location of the easement in relation to your property, your farming operation? Is it running along a fence line? Is it cutting across a corner? Or is it bisecting your property down the middle? All of those drive the tax consequences.
And so with that, it's all a matter of probably first, the easiest thing maybe is get with your tax advisor to go through all these, and
Yeah.
because you'd rather know for sure than maybe guess because you think you understand it.
Right. Yeah. Make sure you have all the information that you can provide to your tax professional that you possibly can. They're going to want to know what it is. They need to see a copy of the agreement that's been proposed to you to be able to analyze the tax effects of it. Because if it's treated as a sale, then that might be ordinary income or it could be capital gain. It just depends on the situation. And we get sale or exchange treatment if the only thing I have left after I've given the easement is just I hold naked legal title to the property, and that's it. Well, if that's the case, I might be able to offset some of the payment or all of the payment that I've received by the basis in the land that's impacted by the easement. And that's where we get into the issue of, well, where is the easement located? Does it impact your entire farm, or is it off in a corner, or is it running down a fence line? Is your operation a dairy operation, and the easement is for high voltage lines that might create stray voltage and impacts your entire dairy? We need to know all of these factors to determine the tax consequence to it. And of course, you may have crop damage. You may have a payment for damages. That's going to be treated as ordinary income. There may be something known as severance damages. There may be a payment to acquire a temporary easement to store things on your property or prospect for wind. All of these get treated a little bit differently on the return. And so your preparer is going to need to know all of that information to be able to properly classify and report those payments on your tax return.
All right. So again, if you did receive easement payments, boy, make sure that you get in probably early with your tax advisor, your tax preparer, to make sure that, because they'll pay you a lot of questions. You want to make sure that you're not overpaying or that you're doing things right when you don't want to get in trouble.
That's right. And I would say even in some instances, it's good to talk to your tax professionals before you enter into these transactions so that they can advise you as to where you're headed based on the payments that you will get as part of your overall tax planning strategy.
We're talking with Dr. Roger McEowen for the Washburn School of Law. We're going to take a break, come back, and talk about maybe some tax tips, some things to think about as you do your year-end planning. We'll do that in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
And our guest is Dr. Roger McEowen for the Washburn School of Law. And Dr. McEowen, of course, we're ending the end of the year. That means, some tax planning for farmers need to kind of be aware of. And we've dealt with a number of different things. So I'll throw a few things at you and maybe get your take. Okay.
Sure.
We always think about expenses, paying maybe next year's or prepaying, getting ahead.
Yeah, make sure you have a written binding contract for identifiable goods that would be deductible in the farming business anyway. So that's where you want to start. You need to be on the cash method of accounting. There's a limit to how much you can prepay and deduct, and that limit is 50% of your total deductible farming expenses, not counting the prepaids. So if I have $100,000 worth of deductible farming expenses, I can prepay and deduct up to 50% of that, or 50,000. There are some exceptions to that. If there's a major economic change that impacts the operation, or a catastrophe, a disaster, something like that, major change in federal farm programs, that can get you out of that 50% limitation. But that's the key. We want to make sure we follow the rules, and so those are the major points with respect to that.
Many farmers got these emergency relief payments, ERPs. What about those?
Well, the big issue on those, Ken, is that they are not deferrable this year. If you receive them this year, you cannot defer those into 2023. You're going to have to report them this year, because payments received this year are relating back to either 2020 or 2021 crops. And so receipt this year means it's already been deferred. I can't defer them again. Now, if there's a second phase to those that pay next year, those could be deferred into 2024. But or you get a payment, say in late 22, that relates to a 22 crop, then you can defer that into 23. But the ones that have been already issued, no, you can't pay those, or excuse me, you can't defer those into the next year.
Sure. Another thing we've talked about several times, but also a good reminder, say because of the drought, you sold more livestock than normal. There's a few caveats to look at.
Yeah, that's a really big issue this year. There are two tax rules that you might be able to avail yourself of if you have to sell more livestock than you normally would. One is a 1-year deferral provision as to the excess amount, so you don't have to report the excess over what you would normally sell into income this year. The other one is an involuntary conversion provision, which if you replace with like-kind livestock within basically a 4-year period, although that can be extended if there is prolonged drought in a particular area for a year at a time, then you can defer reporting that until the replacement animals are sold. But again, if you use either of those provisions, they only apply as to the excess amount over what your normal sales would be, but it can provide some relief.
And of course, we also many times buy equipment at the end of the year. So maybe a couple different ideas on depreciation.
Yeah, one of the big issues that we're facing at the end of 22 is that bonus depreciation at the federal level is going to cut down to 80% next year, rather than 100% first-year bonus depreciation, which it is this year. So, you might want to buy something this year to be able to write off 100% of it, because next year it's only going to be 80%. Although I'm finding, actually, Ken, in what I do on the private side, as well as advising other people, is that it may be actually more beneficial to not use bonus depreciation and use expense method depreciation on that machinery instead. And so that's something that people need to be talking to their tax practitioners about, as to what is the best option on that. But the change in the bonus depreciation rule coming next year, pending a last minute change by the Congress here, we're going to lose 20% of that starting next year. So that is something that people are considering.
All right, Dr. McEowen, we know you have a blog. How can folks learn more about these things we talked about? Because there's a whole lot more we could have discussed.
Yeah, my blog is accessible through my website, which is washburnlaw.edu, and then /WALTR. And on the homepage down the left side, you can find the access link to my blog. A lot of those, by the way, are reproduced on KSU's Ag Manager website too. So you can find a lot of my blog articles reproduced over there.
All right, very good. Well, Dr. McEowen, again, have a Merry Christmas, great holiday season. We'll talk with you again next year.
Thank you. You too, Ken. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Dr. Roger McEowen from the Washburn School of Law has joined us. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the soybean checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
We invite you to the 2023 Kansas Soybean Expo, January 11th in Topeka, Kansas. The event returns to the Maynard Conference Center at 1717 Southwest Topeka Boulevard, adjacent to the Topeka Farm Show. Check-in begins at 8:30 a.m. with the program scheduled for 9 a.m. The day includes comedian C. Willie Miles as the headlining speaker and an economic panel in the afternoon that is sure to be informative and engaging. Miles's bio describes him as America's everyday comedian who uses quick wit and a great sense of humor to deliver high-energy, side-splitting shows for all ages. Keep 'em laughing has been C. Willie's goal on the stage over the last 18 years, and he isn't about to stop, the bio continues. Miles has shared the stage with Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, the Beach Boys, Toby Keith, and other household names. The 90-minute afternoon panel features Mac Marshall, United Soybean Board Vice President of Market Intelligence, Scott Geralt, American Soybean Association Chief Economist, and Matt Herman, Iowa Soybean Association Senior Director of Renewable Product Marketing. The panel includes an opportunity to ask these experts questions. Other staples of Expo, including the Commission partner updates, legislative luncheon, and yield and value contest results announcement, are slated on the agenda as well. Kansas Soybean Expo is a program of the Kansas Soybean Association made possible with funding from the Kansas Soybean Commission. Check out the registration form at www.kansassoybeans.org/expo to get your name on the attendee list. See you in January.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
I'm Heather Lansdowne, the Director of Communications at the Kansas Department of Agriculture. Nearly every day, I use numbers and statistics about Kansas Ag, and most of that data comes from the Census of Agriculture by the USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service, or NASS. The 2022 Census of Agriculture is now underway across the nation, as the census was mailed out in November. Ag producers, you should have received your Ag Census questionnaires, and we encourage you to make time to respond online or by mail. This every 5-year data collection remains the only source of impartial, comprehensive state and county level ag data in the country. The Ag Census looks at land use and ownership, operator characteristics, production practices, income, and expenditures. At KDA, we appreciate all those who participate in the Ag Census because we put the NASS data to work as we make policy decisions and advocate for projects and programs that can help ag sectors in Kansas. We know that farmers and ranchers use the data to make business decisions or as they use ag-based products and services like precision ag software. Researchers use NASS data to analyze trends and issues. State and local governments and organizations use NASS data to understand the vital economic role that agriculture plays in their communities. These are just a few of the many ways this data is critical to the future of Kansas agriculture. Whether you respond securely online at agcounts.usda.gov or complete the questionnaire and return it by mail, the important thing is that you are counted. Respond today. The Census of Agriculture is your voice, your future, your opportunity. For more information or assistance, visit nas.usda.gov/agcensus. Thank you very much.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
I guess I've always been involved in farming, grew up on the farm, and it's just something that I've always wanted to do.
I farm is something that as a kid, a child, I grew up with. I think for the smaller communities out here in Kansas, it's very important. It's basically the driving force that keeps a lot of the small communities alive.
Well, why I farm is it's in my blood. I'm the 4th generation to be right here on this farm. Probably ever since I started farming, I've grown grain sorghum. There's nothing like the hands-on experience that you get from doing it.
I try everything I can to work sorghum into the rotation. Sorghum is vital to the economy because every bushel we raise out here that is delivered to a local elevator, to local terminal, that money is allowing producers to reinvest that money here, help grow our economies, help grow our small communities. support the local co-ops, the local agronomy suppliers.
Farming and being an ag producer is the ability to help feed our populations, but also develop new ways to enhance soil health and make sure that the farm is passed on from generation to generation for years to come.
We need good young people that are out here farming. There's some really good young guys out here, really excited when they get involved with both their community organizations, but also get on some statewide organizations. I think these commissions set the standard for what will happen with the industry, with markets, with expanding new markets to use our grains.
Everybody on the board is a sorghum producer. You have to be actively growing the crop. Everybody is involved and wants the best for their money.
It's amazing what they get done with what they have. I've been totally impressed with the commission.
You get to see where a lot of your checkoff dollars go and the reason behind that, and you have the opportunity to have input in that process.
It'd have been 07, 08, 09, and I'd go to seed dealers, seed companies, and be like, what have you had in research in sorghum? And their answers were nothing. I saw that as a huge issue in the fact of sorghum is a good crop for our area, to really get down and figure out what our priorities are and really where we want to invest and where we want to focus our research dollars to help promote sorghum and help advance technology with the crop.
We know that what we do here makes a difference in a lot of lives all over the world.
It's just vital for the economy in general that it allows us to move dollars through here and bring money from outside of Kansas into the state and help continue to be an economic driver. It's just vitally important that we continue to rely on the grain production and things to help be that economic driver for these small communities. My name is Stephen Biggie and I farm in north central Kansas in Rooks County.
Kevin Kniebel. I farm not too far from Manhattan, Kansas to the south.
I'm Kevin Harris.
Mike Rosebrook.
Nathan Larson.
Clark Bibb, I'm an at-large member of the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission.
And I'm serving on the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission Board. You're in God's creation out here, and we get to work in it every day. The miracles of putting seed in the ground and producing abundantly is just, I can't top it. It's not just an occupation, it's not just a job, but it's just a tremendous way of life.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Cattle feeder Sean Tiffany of Harrington is the new president of the Kansas Livestock Association. He began his one-year term in the volunteer position during the group's annual membership meeting December 2nd in Wichita. Members chose Smith Center rancher Philip Weltmer as the new KLA president-elect. Tiffany co-owns and operates Tiffany Cattle Company, which consists of 2 finishing yards and a grow yard, with his brother Shane. He believes in being actively engaged in the organizations in which he is involved and joined KLA because of the important role the association plays within the industry. Over the years, he has held several positions within the organization. Tiffany currently serves on the KLA Executive Committee and KLA Board of Directors. He also represents Kansas on the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Board of Directors. Tiffany received his degree in animal science from Kansas State University. He and his wife Nikki have 5 children. Weltmer and his wife Jessica joined the family ranch full-time almost 20 years ago. The operation encompasses a commercial cow-calf herd, small registered Angus herd, feed yard, and farming business. Weltmer has been extensively involved in leadership in KLA, the Kansas Beef Council, and NCBA. He currently serves as vice chair of the KLA Animal Health and ID Committee. He also is a member of the Kansas Beef Council Executive Committee and serves on the Federation of State Beef Council's Board of Directors. Weltmer is a past chairman of KBC. He graduated from K-State with a degree in animal science. He and Jessica have 3 children.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Good day. I'm Derek Hermish with Pinion, a division of KCO ISOM. Volatile grain markets are the new normal, it seems. The good thing about true volatility is that it creates much more opportunity than flat markets. However, your opportunity to experience regret is much greater as well. For example, say you sell your soybeans on a 50-cent rally only to watch it go up another $1 the next week after you sell. Can you be happy about selling into the initial rally, or are you going to focus on what you missed out on? Regret should be the least of your concerns when it comes to marketing, but it can rear its ugly head in these environments and negatively affect decisions down the road. Selling your grain at profitable levels is the key. That's what you're always told, but it's never that simple. It is true that you will not go broke selling for a profit, but you're not in the business of making widgets for $1 and selling them for $2. Volatile markets provide opportunity, but they also provide opportunity cost. If you make a decision that nets you 50 cents less on average for your grain than your fellow neighboring farmers, nobody is going to offer you a discount on fertilizer or seed or equipment repairs to help you make up for it. Quite the opposite, as we've seen recently with inputs going higher. There are options, literally, that can be very useful in volatile markets. Yes, I am referring to puts and calls. I know there are many of you out there that are not fans of options. I talk to you quite frequently, and sometimes I agree with you. But in my experience, this is the environment to utilize them. If you'd like to visit with us about it, give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Derek Hermish. Have a good day.
Well, that's our show this week. Be social with us at KansasAgReport.net or our social media channels. You can also listen to us on the radio, the Ag Network, all over the great state of Kansas. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.